stuff. But now, whoever wants to stay a little bit will Farbrengen in honor of Yud Beis Tammuz. Is Mashke? Is Mashke? No?
I brought him for.
Huh? Okay, you don't have to stay. I won't be upset. You want to stay a little bit? We'll just Farbrengen a little bit. Ooh. Huh? Okay. Well, there's cake and chocolate. That's for sure a good reason not to leave. Mashke.
Chocolate's not, but we make it.
I can hear Jimmy.
Huh? Oh. I'd like to thank the Morviches for stay a little bit. It's not going to be long, maybe 5 hours, 6 hours. No. Oh. No comments from the peanut gallery. Here.
Thank you for the cheer.
Thank you for fixing the books.
Oh, you're welcome.
Here.
Off to New York on Thursday, so can't take any for a while.
Farbrengen Bissell.
Yeah, but the food you could bring to the women, the mashka, I don't know if they want. You want mashka?
Why not?
Yeah, give it.
Come on. Of course she wants mashka.
Liberated.
A lady once came to the shul Simchas Torah for the first time. She ever walked into the shul. The first question she asked, "Where's the booze?"
You heard about you guys?
Remember Moshe? Remember?
Moshe, is there a knife anywhere? Or
We need knife.
you have to
Knife?
cut this cake?
You know, just spoon. You could use the spoon.
Yeah, just use a
You
spoon.
knew there was going to be Farbrengen?
He called if he could bring stuff. I said, yeah.
Sit down so I can
My wife called.
Okay. Everybody got l'chaim?
Die.
Yeah.
What's that? The butter bean?
Cobra.
What?
The coffee bean, the beans. The butter.
Charcoal. Everybody.
Oh,
Oh, man.
You can come close in the back. Why are you sitting so far away?
Yeah, please. Is this coffee bean? Yeah, coffee bean. Okay. And flash.
Ooh, baby.
Oh.
That's the tape.
No plates.
Paper towel.
Yet nikavo kamivo navo and yet nikavo kamivo navo. You drink? Too young. In Hashem b'chodesh meyachad, Hashem b'chodesh meyachad. Einay milvadei, Hashem b'chodesh meyachad, Hashem b'chodesh meyachad. Einay milvadei, Hashem is one, His name is one, His name is one. Besides Him there is none. Yeah. La da net nikavo gramivo navo net nikavo gramivo navo Chaim.
Like some cake? Huh?
Huh? What?
Wants to record it. So we give it to him.
You didn't record the
So go
chair?
ahead.
Lunsher, what's going on with you?
I don't know, my knee is twisted.
Your knee is twisted is not bad, as long as the brain's not twisted.
Your mind's not twisted. Don't let people.
Okay,
think
Yud
like
Beis
that.
Tammuz. We have to discuss a little bit the history of Yud Beis Tammuz and understand why wood-based Tammuz is relevant for all of us. The previous Rebbe in Russia in the 1920s, he became Rebbe after his father passed away in 1920. His father passed away Beis Nissen, Tafresh Pei, which was 1920. And the Frierdiker Rebbe, being an only child, there was no question, so to speak, that he took over the leadership. At that time, in 1923-24, Stalin came to power. There was the revolution in Russia. Stalin came to power, and Stalin started making decrees against Yiddishkeit. Stalin, we said Shabbos, killed 50 million people. I mean, there's a lot of people.
Yeah,
It wasn't all Jews, obviously. 50 million people.
It was a real stick.
Yeah, it was the real stuff. Anyway, so there were decrees against Yiddishkeit. The Frierdiker Rebbe we mentioned Shabbos called in the 9 Chassidim, and he was the 10th, and they made this covenant and this bris between themselves that to the last drop of blood, they're going to have Mesidas Nefesh for spreading Yiddishkeit, especially with the concept of kids, education.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
So they kept they kept searching for the Frierdiker Rebbe to get him guilty. On the 15th of Sivan, that year, 1927, in the middle of the night, after the Frierdiker Rebbe finished seeing people many hours into the night, in fact, he finally sat down to eat something. So the communists, by the way, which were many of them Yiddish communists, the Kfesti or whatever you call it, I can't say the word straight, that they were Russian communists. They were the worst. They came to his house in the middle of the night, and they arrested him. And the family panicked, and there was a lot of stories because they had a lot of paper records of information, underground yeshivas, underground schools, underground mikvahs, underground. There was a whole thing going on today. That was why Russia has today what it has, because of that underground movement. There were shachtim, and as Rebbe said, as soon as a chassid was arrested and taken away to Siberia or to death, the next day another chassid was in his place. That was Mesidas Nefesh, and the Rebbe once spoke. The Frierdiker Rebbe was a responsible person, had a tremendous amount of Avos Yisrael. And if a guy is taken away to get Siberia'd or killed, and the next day another guy was there, that's a lot of Mesidas Nefesh for another Jew. For himself is one thing, but for another Jew, and yet he did it because he knew that had to be done. Okay, and in fact, the Rebbe was then engaged. He wasn't married yet, and the Rebbe was walking, and the Rebbetzin, his wife, Iskala, screamed out, "We have visitors!" And he right away went to the Rebbe's secretaries, and they destroyed the papers, and they burnt the papers, and they ate the papers to get rid of all the documentation.
Yeah, but
Anyway, when the Frierdiker was taken, there's a whole. It's called the Prince and. It's written already in English. Okay, huh?
Not the heroic struggle, that's another.
No. The prince in. They took you to Kuta de Bornim, the Frierdiker Rebbe right the next year in detail everything that happened from beginning to end. Calls it the Shiva Meduri Gehenim that he went through, the 7 chambers of hell that he went through. The prince.
forget.
My brain doesn't work. Okay, anyway. But there's a book all about the Frierdiker Rebbe's imprisonment and how he got out and all the things that went on. And he was defiant with them. You know, they didn't want to let him put on tefillin. He said, I'm not going anywhere. And they didn't, he asked for a room to put on tefillin. They didn't give it to him. So while he was walking under guard, he started putting on tefillin. They threw him down the stairs. They beat him. They broke him. And he didn't care. And he made up in his mind that they don't exist. He said that when they spoke to him in Russian, he knew Russian, he was born in Russia. He spoke Russian perfectly. He said, I'm only speaking to them in Yiddish. They wanted to get translated, it's their problem. I'm not speaking to them in Russian. I'm speaking to them in Yiddish. And there was a Yiddish communist whose grandfather was a chassid of the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandfather, Lulav. One of the Jews' name was Lulav. His grandfather was a chassid of the previous Rebbe's grandfather, Rebbe Merash. And Lulav was wanted to take the Frierdiker Rebbe's bag with his talis and tefillin in it. And he took it from the Rebbe that, let me carry it. He said, Rebbe, let me carry it for you. And he grabbed it back. He didn't let the guy take it. And he said to him, the Frierdiker Rebbe said to this Jewish communist, your grandfather went where my grandfather wanted him to go. I am not going where you want me to go.
Wow, stubborn guy.
And this was and therefore the liberation was actually a liberation. On Gimel Tammuz, he got out of the death sentence. He was sent for 3 years to Kostroma, which was like in Siberia, for Golus. And he asked, when he was in prison, he asked, when are we arriving in Kostroma? He said, they said to him, the train is arriving on Shabbos. Frierdiker Rebbe said, I'm not going. Then they said, then you're going to have to stay in prison longer. He said, I don't care. I am not traveling on Shabbos. So I'm not going in this train that's going to land, stop on Shabbos. I'm not doing it. He ended up staying in prison another few days, not to be able not to travel. And when he went to Kostroma, over there he was told on Yud Beis Tammuz, on the 12th of Tammuz, but the office was closed, so he got actually information on the 13th of Tammuz that he's free to go home. Okay, but now, whenever there is a decree against Jews, it's not only a physical decree. There's something doing in the heavens. Like the Rebbe spoke about Yutas Kislev when the Alter Rebbe was released from prison. There was a decree, and that's what the Rebbeim said. The Baal Shem Tov told him, the Maggid told him. There was a decree in heaven against the dissemination of Chassidus. And because there was a decree in heaven, it manifested itself down here in a way that there was a blockage. They threw him into prison. When the person is freed from prison, in these cases, what does that show? It shows that in heaven they agreed that such a thing could be done. And therefore it trickled down to the physical world that the Alter Rebbe got freed or the previous Rebbe got freed. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes in the letter that he gave out for the next year, he writes that the redemption that I had is not only Lo Yosi Bilvad Go Ala Kodesh Baruch Hu. He said, not only me did Hashem redeem, he said every Jew from all different categories of Jews, and he says, Afilu b'shem Yisrael Yechuna. Even a Jew, Yechuna means it's his nickname. Like I mentioned the Shabbos. He doesn't even feel he's a Jew. He feels that he's a Jew as by nickname only. Only by nickname he feels himself to be a Jew. And that is what Yud Beis Tammuz accomplished. That even a simple Jew that doesn't even know he's Jewish, the redemption of Yud Beis Tammuz helped that he should also be influenced by Torah mitzvahs in the way of Mesiras Nefesh. And the Rebbe once spoke, or many times spoke, the difference between Yutas Kislev is interesting. Yutas Kislev, the Goyim threw the Alter Rebbe in prison. Yud Beis Tammuz, it was the Jewish communists that made the thing that he should get thrown into prison.
Yeah.
Now, what does this mean for me and you? We're not in prison, we're not the Frierdiker Rebbe, we're not the Alter Rebbe. Like, what does this mean for us? So, in Chassidus it explains the following. In every one of us, we have good and bad. You know, like every Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Every Jew has an Amalek in them. Every Jew has a Haman in them. Every Jew has a communist in them. Every Jew has an Obama in them. Every Jew has whatever they have, who they have in them, which is the force within us fighting Yiddishkeit. Sometimes Goy can get in the way. Sometimes a Jew can get in the way. It could be internal Goy, an internal Jew. Sometimes our own Yetzer Tov can sometimes get in the way. Now, you have, let's say, a guy wants to throw the Jew. Again, what happens to a leader is really, it exists within every story in Torah. You have to learn to personalize it. Okay, so what happens? Your base Tammuz, there was a decree against disseminating, teaching children, teaching adults, purity, all the shachtim, all the things that the Jews need, right? There was a decree against it. And sometimes it gets to a point that the Jew, the Yetzer Tov, is actually controlled completely by evil. Is completely controlled by evil. And in order to break that, to get rid of the evil blocking us, a Jew needs to have Mesiras Nefesh. You need to have self-sacrifice. And the only way you can break that evil force is by having self-sacrifice. Now the difference is though like this. A non-Jew has no free choice. The only thing a non-Jew has, as we learned in the class this week, the only thing a non-Jew has free choices in the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. In the 7 Noach laws, the mitzvahs a guy has to keep. Over there, we learned in the Gemara Sunday morning. He has free choice to keep or not to keep. Because if he doesn't have free choice, then you can't reward him or punishment. But in everything else, like we say in this week's parsha, what did Bilam say? Bilam said, I can't go against the will of God. Right? That's why he said, I can't go with them. If God lets me go, I'll go. If he doesn't let me go, I can't go. Nebuch, the big tzaddik Bilam. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, we're talking about Bereshit, the Gemara says, on the way with the famous donkey of Bilam, the Gemara says, Ba ala Sinai. He committed whatever, bestiality, whatever you call it. He had relations with his donkey.
That's the 7 Noach laws.
Which is 7 Noach laws. Correct. So the question is, here this big tzaddik says, I can't go against the will of Hashem, and then Baal HaSeinai. So the explanation is very simple. Not to go with them is not a mitzvah for a guy. Not to curse the Jew. A guy is allowed to curse. One of the 7 mitzvahs is not that a guy can't curse a Jew. Logically, if a guy curses a Jew, he didn't transgress any one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Right? It's not one of the Noach laws. So when it came to that, because he has no free choice, it's not one of the mitzvahs he's obligated in, Bilam said, I can't go against the will of God. I have no free choice. In his 7 mitzvahs, which by the way, for a guy, you can't have relation with an animal either. It's one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. So therefore, that he had free choice, and that he did. Because he had free choice. But otherwise, whether a guy gets a Jew in prison or not, puts a Jew in prison, the guy has no free choice. So in other words, the Yutas Kislev story, when they put Alter Rebbe into prison, that came from goyim that didn't have a free choice.
What about the law of ensuring justice? Isn't that something?
No, you can get somebody you don't like into prison. It's not they say that's justice. They were preaching that's justice. Yud Beis Tammuz took it a step further. Yud Beis Tammuz, the Jews were involved, and they do have free choice. And if they have free choice and they do it, it's worse than if a guy does it. A guy doesn't have free choice, that's coming straight from God. But when a Jew who has free choice about putting a Jew into prison, that they do have free choices, and a big aver, mosor, a snitcher, you can kill him, it says in halacha. But they didn't have the free will. What they did is they actually did it on their own. That's a much more difficult nut to crack. In other words, in our own lives, we can have goyim wanting to stop us from doing Yiddishkeit, and then we can have Jews wanting to stop us from doing Yiddishkeit. There are Jews that don't want us to be so religious, they don't want to be to learn so much, they don't want us to do a lot of different things. What does Yud Beis Tammuz teach us? That even when there's Jews getting in the way. In other words, your Yetzer Tov sometimes can get in the way. Or, like the Rebbe writes in a Yom, you can have a Yetzer Hara that can be dressed up in a garment of Kedusha. In other words, and the Rebbe gives this analogy. A guy walks in late to shul, he's supposed to daven with the minyan. Now he said, no, I want to go learn. It's holy, yeah man, it's holy, go learn. But you know what? The problem is now you're not supposed to be learning. Now you're supposed to be davening. Yeah? If somebody's talking in shul because they want to be mekadev, the guy that they want to talk to, now you're supposed to be davening, you're not supposed to be talking. So it's a Yetzer Hara, but it's a Yetzer Hara of Kedusha. It's a Yetzer Hara of a Yid. That is a much harder nut to crack. It's a tougher nut to crack. What does your Beis Tammuz tell us? Take a seat. It's not Yom Tov, we don't charge for seats. What does it mean?
Fancy cups.
It says one of the things that make a person a chassid complete is he has to be able to drink. Not that he drinks, but he has to be able to drink. You don't. Anyway, coming back to this point. So sometimes you have a Yiddish Yetzer Hara, which is much. Listen, everybody has that. Your family, the Yiddish. Sometimes they don't want you to do this. Sometimes a person needs Mesiras Nefesh for that. That's what your Beis Tammuz broke through. Your Beis Tammuz broke through that the Yiddish communists were the worst ones in the Friedrich Rebbe's imprisonment. The your Beis Tammuz teaches the Jew that we have the ability from heaven. Heaven proved the point that not only when a guy gets in the way do we have the ability to overcome it, but even when a Jew gets in the way, which the Jew has free choice. So it's a much harder thing. We still have the ability to get rid of it. And that's what your Beis Tammuz is really all about. Not only that, that's why the Friedrich Rebbe said this holiday doesn't only affect me, it affects every single Jew. Even a Jew. You know, there's a very interesting story. It's a well-known story. They tell it about a lot of tzaddikim, by the way. There's a teenage boy who was sitting and learning the whole time. Yeah, in the summer. His mother said to him, why don't you go for a swim? Go. Didn't have air conditioning in those days. Go swimming, go cool off a little bit. He said to his mother, if I go swimming, the tailor's son is going to convert to Christianity. That's what he said. If I go swimming, the tailor's son is going to go to Christianity, convert to Christianity. Why? The explanation is very simple. The Jewish people are like this. You have the super frum, less 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 frum, and then you have people that are holding on to Yiddishkeit by one straw. You know, one thin string.
I can relate to that.
Come on, Jimmy.
Look how modest he is.
I think he's holding by two straws.
He's owned by an iron. Anyway, so he said like this.
Well connected.
Everybody is on their level. Yeah? What happens if the top guy goes down a notch? Then the next guy goes down a notch, 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 notch. The last guy that's barely holding on, if he goes down, where's he going? It gets chshmad and he's going to become lechas v'sholem a goy. He says, how can I go swimming? So I'm going to go down a notch. It's in the chain of events. The guy's going to shmatzach. We need to understand each one of us has to be on our level. The level that we are. A business person, a student, or a teacher, a rabbi, a this, whatever it is. Yeah? Somebody called me today, I won't tell you who it was, and I called them back, and they didn't know it was me. So they said,
Never do such a thing.
they say to me, like, who are you? What job do you do? So I said to her, I clean toilets, which is, by the way, true. But all the Chabad shluchim to that. Whatever has to be done, you do. So, fine. It's true. Every person, you know what? What is cleaning toilets? There's, pardon the French, drek. You know what drek is? Fertilizer.
Air freshener.
Or like the signs in Beverly Hills. It's your duty. It's your duty. Yeah? What do you have to... You know, there's a remarkable story with the Rebbe. I mentioned it, but it's a remarkable story with the Rebbe. Rabbi Weinberg, who wrote the lessons in Tanya, he used to give the radio... Okay. He once got a call from somebody, an emergency situation outside of the country. It was late at night. That if you can please bring a letter to 770 to give him to the Rebbe that night. It was mamish an emergency. So he realized Rabbi Chodakov probably at the end of the day, it was like midnight. He probably didn't go in, he usually goes into the Rebbe at the end of the night to bring in the mail and to wrap up the day, so to speak. So he writes it up and he runs to 770 and he finds out Rabbi Chodakov is already by the Rebbe. So he thought to himself, okay, you know what he's going to do? He's going to put the letter on the handle of the door, hoping, on the outside of the door, the Rabbi Chodakov goes out, he'll see the letter, and he'll bring it into the Rebbe. It was in a mamish emergency. God has a good sense of humor. So when Rabbi Chodakov opened the door, the letter fell down into the Rebbe's room and he didn't even realize. Okay? So the next day, Rabbi Weinberg felt very bad. Basically, in other words, the Rebbe had to bend down to pick up his letter that he wrote. So he wrote an apology letter to the Rebbe the next day. He told the Rebbe what happened. He wrote, I apologize that I made the Rebbe bend down to pick up the letter. The Rebbe answered him the following. It's remarkable. Halei zeh kol inyoni. Is this not my whole job? To pick up things, especially those things that people miss. That's what I'm all about. Picking up things that people that fall. Picking up people. But Yud Beis Tammuz is a time of Mesiras Nefesh. It's a time of going above and beyond. Listen, we don't have the Mesiras Nefesh of Russia. I mean, they used to be petrified. We mentioned by the Farbrengen Shabbos, the Russian Chassidim, when they came to America, were still inborn petrified of policemen. Because in Russia, you can just walk in the street and Russian police could just kill you. And that's it. They just kill you, no problem. Or just beat you. They could do whatever they want. They would come to America. They would see a policeman in New York City. They would walk across the street. And they would be petrified. The cop in America is going to do what the Russian cops did. I mean, there was mamish Mesiras Nefesh to the ultimate degree. We don't have that Mesiras Nefesh. We don't need that Mesiras Nefesh. We have a different Mesiras Nefesh that Rebbe writes. Not to be too comfortable in Golus. That's our Mesiras Nefesh. We get too comfortable in Golus. But, you know, we should... Yud Beis Tammuz is a time for a person to look into themselves and see where we need to improve, whether it's between man to man, between man and God, doesn't matter. We said, Shabbos, the Frida was 11 years old, he was already arrested for pushing away a policeman who was beating up a Jew. And he was thrown into prison at 11 years old. He was in prison like 7 times. That's the criteria for being a Chabad Rebbe, is you have to be in prison. That's the condition. You could be a Rebbe, you have to first be in prison. But Mesiras Nefesh of Ahavas Yisrael, out of our way to help somebody to... It's not the same level of Mesiras Nefesh that they was demanded by them in Russia. We have to do what we can do, just In simple English, each one of us, your base Tammuz is a time we need to get better. We need to become a little bit better. Huh?
There's this history of Jews doing really bad things to Jews, like what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
In World War II, within the camps and the capos. What are we supposed to do with Jews who do those type of things? Are we supposed are we supposed to try and change them? Are we supposed to, they were treated...
We're supposed to try to change them. Let's analyze it from a power of observation. Are they Jewish?
100%, of course.
Are they less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu? No, they're not less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu. Their behavior is less Jewish than Moshe Rabbeinu. The mitzvah v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha exists by them. I mean, David Amal says in this, Tachlis in the Senesim, even Maili does that Bikursim, But even then, now the Rebbe says in Tanya, Perek Lamed Beis, you don't hate them, you hate what they do. There's a fundamental difference. Somebody once came to the Rebbe. He said, everything's fine and good, but the way the Chassidim love you and revere you, I have a problem with. That's what he told the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said to him, that is the reaction of my love to them. I love every single one of them so unconditionally, they're just reacting to the love I have for them. Okay? Moshe Rabbeinu, even in this last week's Parsha Kairach, right? 2 weeks ago. There was these guys, Dasan Aviram. From day one, all the way in Egypt, when Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Egyptian, who snitched to get him killed? Dasan Aviram. Okay? Everything, who made problems for Moshe Rabbeinu? Anytime there was problems, the money, Dasan Aviram. They're the classic Al Capone or whatever, the cowboys over there. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu does machlekes. Moshe Rabbeinu went to make peace with them. When a parent has a child and the child misbehaves,
Of course,
you love the kid, you hate what they do. Okay? Bottom line, you love your child and you hate what they do. You hate the behavior, but you don't hate the kid. You love the kid. And you really want him to be better. So in the midst of Avos Yisrael, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, it's the same thing. And he says, both are true. Sinna, you hate their behavior, but you love the person. And that's what the previous Rebbe showed in all of his life. The countless stories of Mesiras Nefesh that he had for individual Jews who were not behaving properly. Yeah, it's not easy. It's much easier to hate somebody. It's easier to hate somebody than love somebody. It's very difficult to love somebody.
I'm just trying to imagine what the Hasidim who were thinking about the Jewish communists who did this, what they were thinking at the time, whether they wanted to get at
Did they want to get revenge? No. There's a story in the Gemara in Brachas. Rab Meir, the famous Rab Meir, had neighbors that were torturing him. Okay, and he wanted to daven to Hashem that they should die. And his brilliant wife, Bruria, the famous Bruria, was Chanina ben Dais's daughter. Not Chanina ben Tradian's daughter. And she said to him, why are you davening that? And she called the pasuk in Tehillim, Yitamu chatoim min haaretz may sins. David HaMelech doesn't say Baruch Nafshi. It doesn't say Yitamu Chaitim min Haaretz. David HaMelech never said may the sinners perish from earth. David HaMelech davened may sins perish from earth. She said, why are you davening? Why do you want to daven? That they should die? Why don't you just daven they should change their ways? And the Gemara says he listened to his wife for a change. And he listened to his wife, and he davened, and they changed their ways. But I'm saying, even in our own practical observance of Yiddishkeit, there are certain things that come easier than other mitzvahs. Certain things come easier. Every person has. There are things that come easier and things that come harder. The things that come easy, it's not Mesidus Nefesh. If it's easy, you do it. You enjoy doing it, you do it. Somebody once came to the Tzemach Tzedek and said, I don't want to learn. I have a problem, I don't want to learn. I hate learning. So the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, I have a bigger problem than you. I do love to learn. What did he mean? It's very simple. Therefore, when I learn, it's no big deal. I'm not getting rewarded for it because I enjoy doing it. Look at you. You don't enjoy learning. And then when you learn, look what you're accomplishing. You're breaking your nature. You're really doing something. You're held in high esteem in Hashem's eyes. There was a story we mentioned in the past. There was this guy in Paris, in what it was, many, many years ago. Guy not from, he was, the Bach met him on Tefillin, whatever, and he started coming to yeshiva to learn. He started becoming more religious. But 1 month a year, he disappeared from the yeshiva. Then he came back, again, month later, disappeared. So the Bacham said, yeah, Ayaka, where are you? What's going on? He didn't want to tell him. Finally, he told him. He has a shiksa girlfriend. In Chicago, they call it shiksa girlfriend. And he cannot separate from her. So once a year, for a month, he goes spends time with her. So the Bacham were talking to him, They weren't getting anywhere. So he said to him, you know what? Go to the Rebbe. You'll have yechidus with the Rebbe. Tell the Rebbe your issue. Tell the Rebbe what the issue is. Be open. Talk the issue. He told the Rebbe the story. The Rebbe looked at him and said, I'm jealous of you. The guy freaked. Like, what? You're jealous? And the Rebbe said to him the following. I don't have that temptation that you have. I don't have that temptation that you have. Therefore, my behaving that way doesn't do anything. But you have this temptation that only you could overcome. In other words, the fact that I don't have that temptation doesn't mean that if I would have it, I would be able to overcome it. Hashem didn't give me the temptation. But you're given that temptation, which means Hashem gives you the ability and the power to overcome that temptation.
For 11 months a year.
He says, I'm jealous of you. You have an ability to do something I can't do. The end of the result was the guy dropped the shiksa, became frum, went to, whatever. And it's a Chassidic family now. But
it reminds me of that kid in the video who, at least he's honest.
At least he's honest. That's true. You have to find the good in everybody, even in ourselves, by the way. But what we really, and as much as we talk about it, but you know what? It's still missing. The problem is we underestimate the abilities that we really have. When we have a difficulty facing us, a challenge facing us, we fall apart. That's our nature, we fall apart. You can't handle it. Okay? The reality is, that's so against everything the Torah stands for. Why does God give us a challenge? Because we can overcome it. If we can overcome it, why is God wouldn't give us a challenge? You know, it's pretty stupid for a parent to ask a kid something they can't do. Right? Can you imagine a kid's a month old, you say, tie your shoes. And the kid can't do it, you give him a whack. What do you mean? You didn't listen to me, you didn't tie your shoes. And that's a stupid person. You can't ask a kid a month old to tie shoes. Yeah? And the Gemara, it's a Gemara. God does not demand from a person more than the person can handle. Okay? Which means, if Hashem gives you a challenge, me a challenge, him a challenge, her a challenge, it doesn't matter. You're given a challenge, you are simultaneously given the ability to overcome the challenge. It's a definite. Just think about it. Would God give me a challenge I can't pass? What do you think God is already? Why would in the world would he give me a test they can't pass? A normal teacher doesn't give a kid a test they can't pass. What type of teacher are you? If Hashem gives us a test, that means automatically Hashem is saying, you can pass this test. I don't have that test because maybe I wouldn't be able to pass it. But you have that test. You have that test. I have that. If you have the test, that means Hashem says you can pass it. What do we need to do? We need to have a little bit Mesiras Nefesh. What do you mean Mesiras Nefesh? Mesiras Nefesh is an attitude. Like we said many times. Azay und anders. This is the way it is and not any different. This is the way it's going to be. The attitude, and this is what Yubis Tammuz is all about. I could do it. I could do it. Mesiras Nefesh, I could do it. The Friedrich Rebbe, one guy stood up against the whole Stalin regime. You know what Stalin regime? It's not Trump. Stalin regime. Stalin was Stalin. Okay? He's ruthless, dictator, brutal, and they could have killed the Friedrich Rebbe. With a little shotgun, they could have killed him. But they didn't. Because that's not what Hashem wanted. He was given a challenge. He was a Rebbe, he was a leader, it's a whole different story. But the fact that he did it opened up the channel for us. He gave us the ability to do it. So what's the ability? What do we need to know? Whatever Hashem puts in our way, we can overcome it. It takes a little bit of effort. But we can't be lazy. What?
So if we're saying that the Friedrich Rebbe gave us the ability to overcome a challenge, what did our Rebbe give us?
An example.
In what, in addition? You didn't learn about the Tetzaveh, huh? The Maimer. The Rebbe explains in the Maimer about the Tetzaveh that the leader of every generation gives the generation what that generation needs. Why didn't God make one Moshe Rabbeinu to stay alive for all generations? We have 5,500 years old. I mean 3,500. Moshe Rabbeinu would be 3,500. God could have done whatever he wanted. He could have made one Moshe Rabbeinu and he would be the Moshe Rabbeinu of the. Why are there different Moshe Rabbeinus in every generation? The Zohar says, "Is pashtusa the Moshe b'chol dara v'dara." There's a pashtus, a manifestation of Moshe in every generation, because every generation has a different avodah that the previous generation didn't have. For instance, Moshe Rabbeinu's time, the Jews did not need Mesiras Nefesh in the desert. Nobody was fighting them. Nobody stopped them from doing Yiddishkeit, right? They had food, liquids, clothing, everything taken care of. They said learn Torah. They had Mesiras Nefesh to learn Torah? 100% not. They didn't have Parnasa to worry about. They didn't have school to worry about. What did they worry about? Everything was taken care of. They were able to sit and learn. No Mesiras Nefesh. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't instill Mesiras Nefesh in his people, in his generation. Mordechai, on the other hand, what did he have to instill in his generation? The Mesiras Nefesh to fighting Haman. And the Gemara says, Kol Hashana Amdu B'Mesiras Nefesh. A whole year, and year means 4 seasons. Every season in Yiddishkeit has a different Aveda. There's a winter Aveda, not clothing. Winter Aveda, summer Aveda, spring Aveda. It says in Torah. The 4 seasons. That is Tishrei, Teves, Nisan, Tammuz, the 4 Tkufas, right? There's a different Aveda. Mordechai's generation needed Mesiras Nefesh. Therefore, what did Mordechai implant within the Jews in his generation? Mesiras Nefesh, because that's what they needed. The Rebbe writes, what did the previous Rebbe instill in his generation, 1920? Mesiras Nefesh. So in 1920s, the Mesiras Nefesh is against Russia. He came to America, the Friedrich Rebbe was Rebbe for 30 years. So the Rebbe said there were 3 decades of 3 different Mesiras Nefesh. In Russia, what did they need Mesiras Nefesh for? To fight the communists. Okay? The second 10 years he was in Poland with the other Jewish leaders, a different story. The third 10 years of the Friedrich Rebbe's life from 1940 to 1950 when he came to America, the last 10 years, what was his fight? What did he instill in the Jews? What was necessary for the Jews in the 1940s? America is not different. Everybody that came over, my grandparents the same way. They all came over to, from Europe, and they said, okay, Europe, beards, payers, America, come on, it's different. No beard, no yeshiva, whatever. That's what America, and he had Mesiras Nefesh. That's what he had to instill. What did our Rebbe instill? So look at the end of the Maimon. The Rebbe says, there were people in Russia had tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. Had tremendous amount. Where's Moshe? Sleeping? There's something on your phone over here. Okay, whatever. What was in Russia? There were Jews that had Mesiras Nefesh, and they came to America. The Rebbe, Einik Kol Kach, you don't see the same level of Mesiras Nefesh by them. You know what our Rebbe gave us? And this the Rebbe writes in the Maimer of Ata Tetzaveh, the last Maimer he gave out edited. The Rebbe writes, and this is what we see the Rebbe did. The Rebbe made Mashiach reality, and the Rebbe fought complacency of Golus. In the Rebbe's time, especially the last years there was no more fighting. Where in the world was there Mesiras Nefesh for Yiddishkeit? Even Russia, look what Russia has today. There's no more in the world, B'chlal, generally speaking, Mesiras Nefesh to do Torah mitzvahs. You don't have that in the world today. What is the big issue in today's world? Complacency in Golus. Who needs Mashiach? I have a Tesla, I have a house in the north, north is Esmanica, and I have and I have an iPod, and an iPhone, and what do I need Mashiach for? And Rebbe, what was Rebbe's Mesiras Nefesh that he had? He made the word Mashiach a household word. And that's what the Rebbe Mesiras Nefesh for. That was the Rebbe's mission in the end of the Rebbe's life. At the beginning of the Rebbe's life, by the way, when 1950, when the Rebbe took over, there was a different Mesiras Nefesh. It wasn't complacency in Golus. It's to rebuild America. It was right after the Holocaust. It was right after the Holocaust. Jews were down and out. Like we said many times, not down and out in Beverly Hills, down and out. And the Rebbe rebuilt the Jewish pride in the 50s. He sent out shluchim. They were called then, remember Kennedy started the Peace Corps mission? The Rebbe started it in the 1950s. The Rebbe sent out shluchim to all over the world and then do things. And that was the Rebbe's job, to make people aware of the Yiddishkeit and not to be complacent to being in Golus. To know what it means to be a Jew. That's what the Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh for. You think it's easy? Again, looking at reality, the Rabbeim had a tremendous Avos Yisrael, and they worried about the Gashmias of people. They worried about the Parnos of everybody. That's what they loved everybody. That's what they worried about. What does the parent worry about his kids? that they're okay and they're parnasa and they're good, peace and everything. The Rebbe sent shluchim to places where there was nothing. No kosher, no mikveh, no minyan, no. You know what it is for a father to send a child there? Rabbi Lau, not the present one, the father, is from Meir Lau. Yeah? He happened to be a close friend of Chabad. And somebody once came to him and was knocking Chabad. Knocking Chabad. So he said to him, Rabbi Lau said, you're not a Chabadnik. Okay? He said to the guy like this, let me ask you a question. If your Rosh Yeshiva, it was a Litvish guy, yeah? If your Rosh Yeshiva would call you in today and say, I want you to open a yeshiva in Timbuktu, where there's nothing. He said, would you go? The guy said to him, truthfully, no. He said, are you aware that most of the Chabad Shluchim today were guys that never saw the Rebbe? And if they saw, they were mamish babies, 2 years old, 3 years old, right? The Rebbe passed away 25 years ago, and 2 years before that, the Rebbe was basically out of commission with the stroke. He rarely came out, yeah? So, you have shluchim today that are going out on shlichus to Vietnam and Cambodia and Timbuktu and India and all those places around the world. The Rebbe didn't even call them in and tell them to go. They know this is what the Rebbe would want. Yeah? And the Rebbe sent out, you know how many shluchas I deal with that have to go to the mikveh every month, they have to take a 3-hour plane ride? There's no mikveh in their city. The people from Vietnam have to go to either Thailand to go to the mikveh or China to go to the mikveh. They want to get kosher food, they got to import it from who knows where to get food. And you think that's not Mesiras Nefesh and the Rebbe's part to send shluchim to those places? Of course it's a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. Think what it is for a parent to send his kid out to those places. It's a tremendous self-sacrifice from the parents' side. That's the Mesiras Nefesh that Rebbe instilled within us. The Mesiras Nefesh that Rebbe instilled within us is we have to do whatever it takes to bring Mashiach. And that is when every Jew around the world is aware about Mashiach. And then Mashiach will come. And that's what the Rebbe Mesiras Nefesh for. So it's different. In 1950, the first year of the Rebbe's leadership, the first years, that continuing the Friedrich Rebbe, that America is not different, but more than that, to rebuild pride of Jews in America. So Chabad houses and schools. You know how many schools were open, how many day schools were open in the early 50s, and now in the 40s. My father, in the middle of his Sheva Brachas, okay, got a call from the Friedrich Rebbe's office to go to Rochester, New York, to open a school. In the middle of his Sheva Brachas. And that's what used to go on. Bachim were sent out, open day schools. The whole New England was full, whether New Haven and Worcester and Boston, tons and tons of cities. They opened day schools, and the Rebbe continued in the 50s, but the Rebbe actually built up Jewish pride more in the 50s. And then the last years of the Rebbe's life was complacency and goals. We got to bring Mashiach. That's the Mesiras Nefesh the Rebbe instilled. But it's the same Rebbe in different bodies. This generation needs this emphasis, so it can't be a previous body. That body was for a different generation. This body is for this generation. L'chaim, anyway, I'm talking too much. L'chaim, should go away from your Beis Tammuz with a little bit of enthusiasm and get things done. L'chaim.